I swear that house was haunted. I don't say that to sound dramatic. I say it because I lived there for 11 years, and there's still one night I can't explain, no matter how many times I go back over it. The house was old, one of those places built in the 60s with hardwood floors that had gone a little uneven over the decades. My parents bought it from an elderly couple who'd lived there their whole married life. It had good bones, my dad used to say, thick walls, deep windowsills, the kind of house that creaked when the temperature dropped like it was settling into itself for the night. Downstairs, right off the entryway, there was a room my parents called the living room, but nobody actually lived in it. It had a couch nobody sat on, a glass cabinet full of my grandmother's china, and an antique rocking chair that had come with the house from the previous owners. We used that room twice a year, basically, Thanksgiving and Christmas. The rest of the time, the door stayed half open, and the room just sat there, dim and quiet, like it was waiting for something. I never liked that room. I couldn't tell you why, not back then. I just didn't go in it if I didn't have to. Even as a kid, walking past it at night gave me this feeling, like the air in there was a little heavier than the air everywhere else. My mom used to laugh at me for it. She said I had an overactive imagination. Maybe I did. Across the hall from that room was a small half-bathroom, just a sink and a toilet. Nothing special except for one thing. There was a big mirror mounted above the sink, and because of the way the hallway lined up, if the bathroom door was open, that mirror caught a clean reflection straight into the living room. You could be washing your hands and see the whole room behind you, without even turning around. My best friend Danny used to stay over almost every weekend. We'd set up an air mattress in the family room downstairs and stay up too late watching movies until we passed out, with the TV still going. Nobody else slept on that floor. My parents' room was upstairs, my sister's too. It was just us, the TV humming, and that dark hallway leading past the bathroom and the living room. Danny wasn't the nervous type. He was the kid who'd go check on a weird noise instead of hiding under the blanket. So, when I tell you what happened to him, I want you to understand that part first, because it matters. It was a Friday night in the fall, I remember, because we'd been out raking leaves earlier, and Danny's hands still smelled like the outside. We'd fallen asleep around 1 in the morning with some movie still playing low. I woke up a little after 4 because Danny was climbing over me, practically falling onto the mattress, breathing like he'd just sprinted up a flight of stairs. I asked him what was wrong. He didn't answer right away. He just sat there for a second, staring at the hallway like he expected something to come around the corner. Then he told me. He said he'd gotten up to use the bathroom. Said it like it was nothing because it was nothing. That's what you do at 4 in the morning when you've had 2 sodas before bed. He walked down the hall, flipped on the bathroom light, and went about his business. He didn't think to close the door all the way. Why would he? It was our house, everyone was asleep. There was nothing to think about. He finished up and turned on the sink to wash his hands, and that's when it slowed down for him, he said. He was looking down at the water running over his hands, half awake, not really thinking about anything, when he glanced up into the mirror. The living room was behind him in the reflection, same as always, except this time someone was sitting in the rocking chair. He said his first thought wasn't fear. His first thought was that it was my mom. Sitting there in the middle of the night made sense to him for half a second, the way things make sense when you're not fully awake. He figured she couldn't sleep, or she'd heard something, or she was just an early riser checking on the house. He almost said something to her right there in the mirror. Almost said, "Hey, you okay?" or something like that. Instead, he turned around to actually talk to her. The chair was rocking, slowly, evenly, the way it does when someone's just gotten up and left it moving. But there was nobody in it. The room was empty. No shape near the doorway, no footsteps retreating down the hall, nothing. Just that chair, tipping gently back and forth in the dark, like it hadn't noticed anyone was watching. He said he stood there for a second, longer than he meant to, waiting for the chair to just stop. It didn't stop right away. It kept going, slower each time, the way a chair does when it's winding down from being pushed. Except nobody had pushed it. Nobody was in the room. He was the only person standing in that hallway, and the only door that led into the living room was the one he was looking through. That's when he ran. He said he didn't even remember deciding to run. One second he was standing at the sink, and the next he was moving, and the hallway felt longer than it should have, like his legs weren't covering as much ground as they were supposed to. He said the house felt different behind him, like it was watching him leave. He tripped over the edge of the mattress and landed half on top of me, which is how I woke up in the first place. We sat there together for a while, not saying much. I remember the TV was still playing something in the background, some late-night rerun neither of us was watching. Eventually, I asked him if he wanted to go check the room, just to prove to ourselves that nothing was there. I don't think either of us wanted to, but staying on the mattress imagining it felt worse than actually looking. We walked down the hall together. The bathroom light was still on, throwing a yellow rectangle across the hallway floor. We stood in the doorway of the living room and looked in. The chair was still. Not rocking, not swaying, just sitting there like it always did, facing slightly toward the window the way it had for as long as I could remember. There was a pillow wedged into the seat that always made it awkward to sit in, something I'd never once done in the years we lived there. Everything looked exactly the way it should have, exactly the way it always did in the daylight. Neither of us said the chair had definitely been moving. We also didn't say it hadn't been. We just stood there for a minute, looking at an empty room that felt like it had just finished holding its breath. Danny didn't use that bathroom again for the rest of the time he stayed over that weekend, and honestly, for a long time after that either. If he needed to go, he'd use the one upstairs, even if it meant walking past my parents' room. He never really explained why, beyond just saying he didn't like it. He didn't have to explain. I understood. After that night, I started noticing things I probably would have brushed off before. Our dog, who used to wander through every room in the house without a second thought, stopped going near that doorway. She'd walk right up to it and then just sit down in the hallway, staring in, refusing to go any further no matter how much we called her. My mom mentioned once, kind of offhand while she was making dinner, that she'd heard a faint creaking sound coming from that room late one night, like someone rocking slowly. She said it like it was nothing. Just an old house settling, she figured. I didn't bring up what Danny had seen. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want to give it a name. A few months later, my mom found the rocking chair turned slightly, angled a little more toward the doorway than it usually sat. She figured she must have bumped it while dusting, though she said she didn't remember doing it. I remember standing in that doorway a long time after she told me that, just looking at the chair from the angle where you could see straight into the mirror across the hall. It stayed facing the door for weeks after that. Nobody moved it back. We ended up moving out of that house a couple years later. Nothing to do with any of this, just my dad's job relocating us out of state. I haven't spoken to whoever lives there now. Part of me has always wanted to reach out, just to ask if they've noticed anything strange about that room, whether the mirror still lines up the way it used to, whether that chair still sits facing the window the way it always did before that night. I never sat in that chair. Not once in all the years we lived there. I used to tell myself it was because of the pillow wedged into the seat, how awkward it made things, how you'd only ever get half comfortable in it no matter how you sat. But sometimes, late at night, I still think about the way Danny described it, how he almost spoke to her, how close he came to saying something out loud to whoever was sitting there, gently rocking in a room where nobody was supposed to be. I wonder sometimes if she was waiting for him to speak.